On the program, shifting from aid to trade is key to Africa's sustainable future. Experts demand supporting African initiatives, economy, and resources. Congo's Senate asked to strip former President Kabila of immunity from prosecution to face charges. Kenyan lawmaker shot dead on the street of Nairobi. Ukraine deal with the US on natural resources sparked contention among Ukrainian experts. Well, you shall hear more on this on the Package Global Update. It is the program that brings you up to speed with stories you might have missed within the week. And of course, it is a platform that showcases your diaspora and diplomatic activities. Welcome to the program. My name is Oyeyemi Ajayi. But first, let's take a look at some graphical representation of trending stories within the week that made headlines. Right, after close to 4 years of violence, talks aimed at ending the war in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo are raising hopes of a return to peace. Government of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels agreed to a ceasefire deal as they work towards a broader peace deal, according to the joint statement released to the media.
After close to 4 years of violence, talks aimed at ending the war in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo are raising hopes of a return to peace. The DRC government and the M23 rebels recently announced an immediate ceasefire to facilitate a truce. Many people have hailed the decision as a victory for peace.
All we have to do is to really continue to support the efforts to bring peace. We cannot afford to have this country split into different parts where the other side is completely devastated by the war and the other one, there's no way. These are all one people, it's one country, and we have to do all we can. And that's what I see President Tshisekedi doing day and night.
More than 7,000 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands displaced by the fighting that raged in the provinces of North Kivu and South Kivu since January. Some Congolese are disappointed that the ceasefire has been announced after so many deaths.
I'm not happy with that decision because many Congolese have been killed and raped in that war. The rebels vowed to come to Kinshasa, so let them do so. We should have negotiated with them at the beginning of the war.
The issue of negotiating with the M23 rebels should have been done well in advance. Our government should not have waited for people to die and get displaced and then announce a joint communique signed with the rebels. It's like a failure on the part of our government.
UN experts and the DRC government accuse Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebels by deploying around 4,000 troops in Congolese territory. But Rwanda has denied the charge. Regional blocs from East and Southern Africa have a separate peace initiative aimed at resolving the DRC crisis. Their efforts are backed by the United Nations, European Union, and the US government, which are all calling for a political solution to end the conflict.
Donc, il y a une initiative américaine qui pousse.
This is an American-led initiative that is pushing the two sides to reach a diplomatic solution. So that diplomatic pressure has certainly resulted in this peace process. Since our government's strategic partners, the Americans, are behind it, we think they might come to an agreement, even though the warring parties don't trust each other.
The lack of trust between the DRC and the M23 rebels has led to the collapse of several efforts to resolve the conflict. The ceasefire announced by the M23 rebels and the DRC government does not appear to be fully holding. Clashes have been reported in North Kivu province between fighters of a pro-government militia known as Wazalendo and the M23 rebels, despite the calls for peace.
Right now, the General Auditor of the Armed Forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo contacted the Senate on April 30, 2025 to request the lifting of immunities and authorization of prosecution against former president of the Republic, Joseph Kabila, after receiving instructions from the Ministry of Justice. In an announcement made by the Minister of Justice, Constance Mutamba, confirmed that he had given the injunction to the Authority of Judicial Prosecutions against the former head of state, Joseph Kabila, for the offenses of treason, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Joseph Kabila is not being prosecuted as a former head of state, but in his capacity as a senator, clarified Constance Mutamba. The Minister of Justice, while reassuring the existence of a maximum of evidence contesting to Joseph Kabila's participation in the massacre of populations in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Minister of Justice also announced that the courts had listed the former president's movable and immovable assets, both in the country and abroad. He also ordered the seizure of all the movable and immovable property. Movement restrictions were imposed on his alleged accomplices in what the authorities described as a case of high treason against the nation. On the same day, the Ministry of the Interior had, for its part, suspended the activities of the People's Party for Reconstruction and Democracy, a party dear to the former president of the Republic, Joseph Kabila. Well, meanwhile, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, reaffirmed the country's commitment to a fair and inclusive global order at the BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He noted that BRICS offers a collaborative alternative to outdated international systems, citing the new development bank and a common payment system as signs of progress. Tuga called for urgent reforms in global governance, particularly within the United Nations Security Council, to better reflect the 21st century realities and empower the global south. Nigeria is prepared to contribute to BRICS initiatives in peace and security, sustainable development, health cooperation, and governance of artificial intelligence, he stated. Tuga also expressed gratitude for Nigeria's designation as a partner country, emphasizing the bloc's dedication to inclusive multilateralism. In a related development, Yusuf Tuga is seeking to deepen Nigeria-Brazil economic ties, with both nations reaffirming the commitment to building a resilient, innovative, and inclusive trade and investment partnership. Yusuf Tuga, in a statement by his media aide, expressed the government's commitment to de-risking investments, particularly through insurance mechanisms. Equally, Tuga indicates Nigeria's readiness for strategic long-term partnerships. He gave this assurance when he addressed a gathering of high net worth investors and business leaders at the Brazil-Nigeria Business Roundtable held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Now, equally, the shifting dynamics of donor funding for Africa in recent years explains why experts call for the need to move from traditional aid to trade-centric models, which they believe can help the African continent support its own initiatives, economy, and resources. Here is the AU Commissioner and other analysts.
Africa is going through a changing face, transforming politically, economically, and also security-wise. The world is also in a different emerging world. The threats are compounding, and the most important thing is for Africa to unite and stand behind the African Union together. This is where Nigeria continues to play the leadership role in the African Union. But 4 issues stand out that we must invest in legacy solutions anchored on number 1, structural conflict prevention. We must invest more in stopping crisis becoming very violent. And number 2 is to promote better integrated capacity for states, member states of the African Union, to counter terrorism, violent extremism, or all their security challenges. State capacity will mean greater defense of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the unity of member states. 3 is to also strengthen consolidation of democracy and effective governance so that it can yield human security and peace dividends. This is very, very critical for all member states because the African Union continues to have zero tolerance for unconstitutional changes of government. And finally, we have to build smart partnerships for peace and security. Partnerships within our regions, with ECOWAS leading in West Africa and the rest of our other regional blocs. Most importantly, with the continent as a whole and with like-minded countries across the world, particularly South-South cooperation. With this, we can have better solutions that will really impact.
Identify foreign policies. You must ensure that your foreign policies are in line and in tandem with the realities of your domestic policies. Foreign policy is like the game of lawn tennis, right? Where you serve. You don't stand where you serve. You go to where you anticipate the ball is returning to. So your domestic policies must be in tandem with your foreign policy. But we need to see proactive measures, and that's the reason why we are not all presidents. We are not all governors, because somebody has said, I can take up the responsibility of addressing those concerns, right? So we need to continue to charge these individuals in position of authority to ensure that they do more, be a lot more proactive. This is not time to be reactive. Look at what is happening around the world. Trump, for example, is saying America first. He's an ultra-nationalist figure and he's putting it out there. So why don't we come back, harness our resources? What happened to the idea of resource nationalism? What happened to the idea of ensuring that Pan-Africanism and the group of less developed countries or emerging economies come together to sell amongst themselves? Look at the setback that the African Free Continental Trade Area is facing. Look at the setback that ECO is facing as a result of the disintegration, as a result of the pullout of some of these countries from the ECOWAS bloc. So these are some of the things we speak of. It is not just enough to design this concept. It is also fairly important.
We're talking about global uncertainty. There is nothing like global uncertainty. What we're seeing as global uncertainty is not any uncertainty. These are actions that are being taken by countries that are looking out for their interests, that are questioning existing order, that are no longer relevant and favorable to them, that are desirous of developing a new order that will continue to protect their interests. So why should Nigeria remain neutral and passive? I ask this question because I have in mind the formation of BRICS. When BRICS was to be formed, we thought that Nigeria, as the leader of Africa, that was at the forefront of championing the liberation of other African countries that are under colonialism, would represent Africa. And South Africa, that will assisted yesterday to overcome the apartheid regime, has now taken the leadership role that Nigeria ought to take, because South Africa is not considering what the traditional allies will say. South Africa is acting in the interest of South Africa and South Africans. Though it was bad, but you realize that Nigerians were equally attacked in South Africa in what was known as the xenophobic attack. They never thought that they owe us anything because Nigeria expended resources, both material and human, to liberate it from the shackles of apartheid. But they were looking out for their interests because they believed that Nigerians were dominating. And rightly so, Nigerians were dominating because we have the capacity and the wherewithal. So until as a country we're able to solve our own internal problems, we're able to do what we need to do to survive in the midst of global actors reshaping the realities of existing orders in the global arena. Until we do that, if we continue to dilly-dally between satisfying our traditional allies that can no longer add any value to us and striking new relationships that are capable of assisting us, then we have a problem at our hand because we'll be constrained by what? Friendship, where we are dying silently.
Now, after this time out, we have more stories to come. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, now welcome back. The program is still Global Update, where we discuss different issues around the globe. Now, the Rwandan President Paul Kagame has received Masad Boulos, that's the U.S. Senior Advisor for Africa, and his delegation. They had a productive discussion on partnerships to achieve long-term peace in the Great Lakes and plans to scale up U.S. investments in strategic sectors in Rwanda and the wider region.
It's a pleasure to be here in Kigali on my first trip since being appointed as Senior Advisor to Africa, but not my first trip to Rwanda, this beautiful country. I appreciated the opportunity to meet with President Kagame today. Before sharing some of the bilateral discussions we had, I first would like to take a moment to remember the hundreds of thousands of Tutsi victims, men, women, and children, who were targets of brutal genocidal violence. We stand with the survivors who witnessed these terrible crimes. President Kagame and I discussed a vision for a closer partnership going forward. One that is rooted in regional stability and peace, as well as economic development. Prior to my visit here, I had the pleasure of speaking with President Tshisekedi, President Ruto, and President Museveni. From these visits, it's clear to me how vitally important a durable peace is for this region. We support the security and territorial integrity of all states in this region. There are many American companies already invested in Rwanda. The government of Rwanda has a vision of being an economic leader and has a society ready to drive this vision forward. We are ready to work with Rwanda to achieve this goal, which is why finding a resolution to the conflict in Eastern DRC is so essential, as it will unlock the region's untapped potential. During our discussions, President Kagame committed to pursuing this vision of peace. I can confirm and I can affirm that the United States also remains committed to this effort and is ready to facilitate an end to the conflict, obviously a peaceful end to this conflict, an end that allows countries to secure their borders and lays the foundation for a thriving regional economy. This relationship has great potential, and we appreciate the opportunity to discuss the way forward with our counterparts here in Kigali.
Now, still talking about the United States. The United States and Ukraine have finalized an agreement granting the U.S. access to Ukraine's critical minerals and natural resources. The deal, signed in Washington on Wednesday, is seen by Kyiv as a vital step towards securing long-term U.S. support following strains in what was once a close-knit relationship after Donald Trump took office in January. Kyiv believes the signed deal could potentially strengthen its position in the ongoing war with Russia. The agreement, however, has generated mixed reactions amongst Ukrainian experts.
When we have a first draft of this agreement, there was absolutely awful, absolutely unacceptable for Ukraine, and was like colonial agreement.
If Ukrainian government will present it for free for 50 years of free rent of our resources, we will lose from that.
Now they say give me money, no, liti, for the guarantees. It's not fair, I think.
I definitely started, respecting America less. He's not interested in Ukraine actually ending the war.
Please do everything to make this peace closer to us, closer to people, closer to Ukrainians. Because every day, every hour, every minute, it costs our Ukrainian nation 1 to 5 Ukrainian best guys' lives.
To take control over resources, it is necessary to end the war. The American leadership declare themselves great peacemakers, but what they really do is not peacemaking, it's warmongering. Yeah.
Now, the Gaza Strip is facing unprecedented suffering as strategies of food, water, and medicine pushes its population to the brink of survival. Over 1.1 million Palestinians in Gaza endure severe hunger daily, with 65,000 children acutely malnourished. Hospitals became targets to Israel. Raids are already overwhelmed and undersupplied as doctors and nurses struggle to treat the sick amid continuing cutoff of vital aid due to Israeli blockade. Clean water is scarce, diseases spread, and famine looms, while the United Nations warns the 2-month siege has intensified the crisis, calling it a man-made disaster. Dialysis patients face a slow death as machines fail without maintenance. Spare parts or consistent electricity, fuel shortages force generators to shut down, halting life-saving treatments.
My little baby looks so different now. She has been here for 4 days and keep losing 200 grams every day. They tried feeding her with milk, but it is not working. She is not getting any better.
These machines need technical maintenance, and it is extremely difficult for us to even secure a spot for treatment. Before the war, we used to receive up to 12 hours of dialysis each week. But now, we are lucky if we get even 6 hours.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of Global Update. We hope you'll join us again another time for fresh package on the same station, NTN News 24. Remember, showcase your activities here. My name is Oyeyemi Ajayi. Bye for now.